everyone. My name is Hannah Bothner, and I am the short film program director for Tallgrass Film Festival. Today, I am here with the director and producer of the short film, The Little Tea Shop, Molly Wexler. So nice to have you here.
Wonderful to be here.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. I think that this is not only like such a great film, but such a great topic. We were talking a little bit before we started recording about how so many places have cities have little hubs like this that seem like all the business gets done there and have been around forever. We were talking about, of course, Old Mill Tasty Shop here in Wichita, Kansas. That this place definitely has those kind of vibes. But I want to know how you came to know about the Little Tea Shop, and then also why you decided to make a film about the owner.
Well, I actually grew up going to the Little Tea Shop. My father worked downtown, and so on the rare treat that we would get to go visit him at work, he would take us to the Little Tea Shop. And I actually remember as a young kid thinking, this place is kind of boring. It's stuffy and it's got all kinds of business people. But then, of course, as I got older, as who visited downtown Memphis and, who was in the workplace, honestly, began to change and became much more diverse. And then as the ownership of the tea shop changed also, which is one of the main things we talk about in our film, the restaurant became a very different place, yet almost exactly the same. And I just found that contradiction so interesting because everything around the tea shop in downtown Memphis was getting revitalized and renovated. And there were, smoothie places and sushi shops and, nothing that would have been there when the tea shop was originally formed in 1918. But the tea shop was really the same. It looked the same. The menu really didn't change dramatically. It changed a little bit here and there. It didn't change dramatically. And the same, who's who in the business community was still going there. Yet there was also this huge other clientele of tourists and artists and musicians and all different kinds of people. And in 1982, the restaurant was sold to Suhair Locke, a Palestinian immigrant. And so she brought all this warmth and Southern hospitality, but also a lot of her Palestinian heritage. And it was just such a cool combination. And I just loved that when you walked in the door there, it was sort of like whatever baggage you were coming in with was left at the door, and everyone got along. It was so welcoming. You made these amazing connections. You had some cornbread and life was good. And I mean, I would love to know more. We can talk about it later about Old Mill and that history in Wichita, because I'm sure their story is not exactly the same, but there's probably some really interesting history with that restaurant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, even just like my own personal history, you talking about going to the Little Tea Shop as a kid is exactly my story with Old Mill. It was,
Oh, wow.
time that, we had a day off from school and we were going to go meet Dad downtown for lunch. And my mom worked from home, so she would take us to go to Old Mill with my dad, and we'd meet him for lunch. And then, you wait for a table and sit down and eat your, and I love that the food there is, the Southern comfort, because Old Mill's so interesting because it's sandwiches and then Mexican food. And
okay, so there you go. It's so
yeah.
similar because the tea shop, you can absolutely get, red beans and rice and fried chicken and your greens and your cornbread. But, sometimes you can get Moroccan chicken with couscous, or, there's things thrown in. And that's, to me, that's just what makes America so wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about Suhair. How was it like having her in front of the camera? Was she kind of a natural at it, or did it take a little bit of direction or a little bit of calming down, that kind of thing? It's always an interesting.
It's funny you say that, because when we approached this project, it was from a historical perspective. It was, my first interest was much more about how the restaurant was formed in 1918 by two women. I thought that was so interesting because clearly there are not very many, if at all, women restaurant owners or any business owners, and how it had generally been women run. And, just the connections that had happened there and the amazing things in the city that actually happened from the connections made there. So that was the original angle. And there's definitely some of that in the film. But Sue Hare is such a amazing woman, captivating personality, loves the camera. And so shift over became a little bit more about Sue Hare. And so we didn't direct her at all. Everything she
Wow.
said, I mean, we had questions to ask
Uh-huh.
her to draw out her story and her
Yeah.
history, but she needed no directing.
Good. Okay. And has she
And
seen
she
the
loved
film?
every minute. Oh, she's okay. Let me tell you something. So, of course, we've been so lucky that the film's gotten into almost 20 film festivals, which we just could never have imagined. We're so thrilled it's resonating with people. But of course, most of them have been virtual, almost all of
Uh-huh.
them. But it did show at Indie Memphis, our local film festival, at the drive-in. So we're at the
Cool.
drive-in. Sue Hare's there. Where everyone brought people. She's watching the film not for the first time, and she's videoing it on her phone,
Oh my gosh,
which
that's
I loved.
incredible.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that was
wow.
amazing.
I love that. And she has just such a way about her of like, putting people at ease that it totally makes sense that she's just like, all right, here I am in front of the
Here she is,
yeah.
exactly. I don't know that she could be directed even if we wanted her to.
um so you said that you wanted to approach it at first at like more of a historical angle. I'm really interested about like the kind of research that went into finding more about the start of this tea shop and your guys' kind of process of starting out researching for this film.
But that's exactly when I first came up with the idea. I spent about 6 months just going to the restaurant and eating and talking to different people very informally, sort of inviting myself to lunch with the regulars.
Uh-huh.
Just, I was like, I have this idea, but I don't really know if it makes sense. Can I have lunch with you and talk about your connections to the tea shop? And at the same time, I was going to the public library and the University of Memphis library and trying to find as much history on the restaurant as I could. And it was a little challenging. Like I said, it was formed in 1918, but I did find some really interesting factoids about the women who started it. One of them never married, which, back then was also rare. And, they owned it for about 40 years, which is just remarkable. And when
Wow.
they first opened the restaurant, it was called the Little Tea Shop because they were making tea sandwiches and, little noshes for the women who were coming downtown to shop.
Oh,
And
incredible.
they would have a shoebox at the front of the restaurant and just make change in the shoebox.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so there was a lot of little tidbits like that were pretty interesting.
It's incredible. I think that there's like a lot of knowledge and just a lot to learn from both Sue Hare's story and the story of the tea shop, just the film in general. What is like the main thing that you want people to take away from the film?
The main thing I want people to take away is that with a little bit of kindness and a full belly, life is perfect. And so people just need to remember that even in the trying times that we've had in our country in the last few years, for some reason, that was sort of a little oasis. The tea shop, unfortunately, has not reopened yet. We're hoping it will reopen soon
Fingers
because
crossed.
it's in the downtown business community and so many people are still working from home.
Right.
They
Yeah.
haven't been able to reopen. But, Sue Hare had every reason to take some of the negative things that were said to her over the years and turn away from kindness. And she did the opposite. And she is like a beloved grandmother to so many people and has just fostered such feelings of positivity. So we could all learn from that, I think. Also,
Absolutely.
that women can be business owners and
Yeah.
powerful and a really important part of, downtown busy life.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it so fascinating, like, the looking at Wichita as well. At Old Mill, there's this woman that has been working there for years. Mary, you go in there, and if you're a regular, she recognizes you, and she very much has Sue Hare energy.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had a woman who tragically passed away a few years ago. That was just the total, I would say, matriarch of Kansas or of Wichita's like local restaurant scene, Tanya Tandock. And I just think it's so fascinating that I feel like that's a story in so many small cities, bigger
Hmm.
cities, small towns too.
Hmm.
I guess I want your take on this, like, this, this female led, just, I guess, these matriarchs of the
Hmm.
food industry, or of restaurant industry in these towns.
Well, when you think about it, women are nurturers.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a stereotype, but it's true for a lot of women. They like to cook, they like to nurture people, they like to foster those connections and be loving and welcoming. And a lot of women are very business savvy and know that by doing the things that come naturally, you're also going to make a good living and do the things that you love. I mean, Sue Hare loves to cook,
Hmm.
and she wears herself ragged because she loves to be the front of house, and she's the one who's taking your money and all that, but she's there at the crack of dawn doing all the cooking. And of
Yeah.
course she has help, but she's back and forth the whole time, and she knows everything that's going
Hmm.
on. And somehow you do tend to see that with a lot of women in the restaurant industry. I mean, I bet there's a fair amount of men too, but
Hmm.
I bet they bring a little bit of different energy to the
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
There's almost something like so amazing about how communities rally around these women. If
Hmm.
were to happen, and I'm sure that it's the case with the shutdown. I'm sure that there's just so many people waiting or are there
Oh,
to like help Sue
I
Hare.
took Sue Hare and I were walking around downtown the other day. Every person who
Mm.
stopped us, everyone said, Sue Hare, when are you going to open up again? I need some insert type of food.
Yes, yeah.
Every type of food she served. And I had said, you better get on it, Sue Hare.
They're gonna go
People
open
are
your
getting
restaurant for
restless.
you.
Yeah. People are getting restless for sure.
Well, I love that so much. I my next question is, I know it's very hard to play favorites, but what is your favorite part of the process of making a documentary, maybe of this documentary in particular? Do you like the research? Do you like the actual shooting? What's your favorite part?
My favorite part for sure is the connections. I
Mhm.
met so many wonderful people. I mean, a lot of the people in the film I sort of knew of, but I didn't really know them. And I got to really know them. And that was wonderful. Sue Hare, if I would walk in the restaurant, she'd say hello, but I didn't really know her.
Uh-huh.
And now she's a very dear friend.
Yeah.
And I can really say that about a lot of people in the film. And well, later I think you're going to ask me about my next project. And some of those people might be in that project too.
Oh, incredible.
Those connections can lead to other things. So it's really nice.
Well, that's a great transition. I'd love to ask you about what you're up to next. Where can people go to find your other projects, what you're going to do next?
So right now, pretty much all the same, not exactly everyone, but almost everyone who worked on the tea shop, we're working on a new documentary about the transformation of the Memphis River parks.
Oh,
We
cool.
have a really large piece of land right on the Mississippi River that has been underutilized for years. And so it is just undergoing a $60 million renovation. And it is going to be a world-class park. So kind of like Millennium Park in Chicago or the Highline in New York, top architects, top sculptors, top landscape architects, top playground builders. And it's just going to be transformational for the city. And so we're digging into this, not just at the level of, what's this going to look like when it's done, but what does that mean for the city and the community? And there's an amazing story of a man named Tom Lee, who in 1925, there was a boat accident in the Mississippi, and he alone rescued 32 people from drowning.
Wow.
And it's a remarkable story. But so the main part of the park is named Tom Lee Park, and there's going to be even more about his history and that amazing, really heroism. And so I'm excited for that to get showcased more, because it's a story people don't know, and it's really remarkable, especially because he didn't know how to swim.
That's true. I have chills, like goosebumps, truly,
Yeah,
all over.
it's unbelievable. And I mean, he was African American, and he rescued 32 white people.
Oh, wow.
And this was not normal for that era.
Yeah.
And of course, even though he was recognized for his heroism at the time and people were most appreciative, the appropriate recognition really came far too late. And so it needs to be honored in the right way.
Incredible. It's also, I'm amazed at how similar Wichita and Memphis is. I guess I never really put it together because we are working on a riverfront
Oh, there you go.
revitalization project too right now. So yeah,
Now you're
there's a
really
lot of
making me wish
similarities.
I could have come to Wichita
Yeah.
for the festival. I'm gonna have to make
We'll
sure I
get you
get
here
there
next
soon.
year or something. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And I want to thank all of you out there for tuning in and for supporting Tallgrass.